Just and nice to meet all of you. So today we have a pretty packed agenda, so I'm going to try to get through this presentation as quickly as possible. During this presentation, we'll introduce you to Nuage and NetSuite, and then we'll kick off the demo by showing you an executive overview, and then followed by a financial overview, commissions and royalties, CRM and production scheduling, then also leave some Q&A at the end. However, if you have any questions during the demonstration, please feel free to ask. We love it when these demos are interactive. It just helps us better understand your organization. And then as for goals and next steps, typically what we do is if there's anything that you would like to see more of during this demonstration, we can set a subsequent demo. And then afterwards, we would have the implementation and software proposal that includes the implementation methodology. So any questions? Do these next steps align with you and your team?
Yeah, that looks good, Loris. Thanks.
Okay. Awesome. So here, what we've heard thus far with our several conversations with Kent and the information that you all have been able to provide to him, your team's utilizing multiple different systems that don't necessarily communicate with each other, or there's a lot of bolt-ons that need to be placed in. And in the finance side, there's a lack of robust accounting and reporting capabilities. So a lot of this is causing your team manual work, especially since you are in this growth phase. And then current royalty accounting methods contain mismatch advances. And this is also causing your team a lot of manual work on your end. And the solution that you're looking for is something to bring everything into one place and provide a single source of truth. So based on what we've heard thus far, is there anything that I'm missing or anything that your team would like to add on?
I think you pretty much nailed it.
Okay. Yeah, and feel free to also message me if there's anything else that you would want to see during this demonstration, just to keep this super interactive. Now, to tell you a little bit about Nuage. So here we understand the importance of choosing the right partner for your implementation. And we have a dedicated team of experts that help you maximize your workflows and achieve your business goals. So with our commitment to your success, you can expect a smooth and successful implementation that transforms the way that you work and communicate. Essentially, together, we can help you get the most out of your NetSuite investment and take your business to the next level. Equally as important is who we strive to be as an organization. Nuage's vision is to help over 1,000 customers reach their full potential with cloud applications. And our mission is to deliver the best available cloud technology by the best people with a commitment to delivering quantifiable results. And as for our mantra, and it's as cheesy as this is going to sound, customer success is our success. So this is our North Star, and it's why we do what we do. Our commitment to you is access to an executive team that is dedicated to your success and driven to convey quantifiable value with what we find to be the best ERP in the marketplace. So are there any questions regarding Nuage? Okay. So now let's talk NetSuite. Louis, if you can cover these.
NetSuite is an all-encompassing ERP, like some of the legacy applications we talked about earlier, from JD Edwards to SAP. They have really started as what was initially called QuickBooks on steroids. They were actually initially called NetLedger, and they have scaled 10x, tenfold, if you will, to really encompass a full suite of feature and functionality. So We're going to cover quite a bit of that today, but elements like your CRM, elements like HR, payroll, are all now out of the entire suite. With that, you have not only a pretty sizable user base, a whole advertising, media, publishing vertical now specific to NetSuite, with some big dogs like your Hulus of the world running on NetSuite. But all of these organizations are on the exact same release of the product. Product upgrades twice a year, as you would expect with any subscription. And with that, what you're getting are pre-configured roles, pre-configured dashboards, workflows, and KPIs, all specific to your industry. So you'll see some of that today. You all are a little bit more unique in that you've got the manufacturing elements as well. So we'll cover kind of what that looks like. And we're excited to show you the application. The application is constantly evolving over the last year. We've finally had elements like bill capture being released. So we're very excited with where the application continues to go. And I'll let Lourdes cover some of those critical pieces as to the ROI and why NetSuite is typically the preferred solution in the industry.
Yep. And then here are some examples of our customers by verticals. Over 34,000 folks are on the system, and everybody, like Louis had mentioned earlier, is on the same update. Updates are in the fall and the spring, so you don't have to worry about that, and it's all included in the package. Was there a question? Okay. Louis, if you could touch on this slide.
Sure. So really, as you would expect, everything from visibility to control agility, we're going to show you a lot of that in the application today. So I think we can dive in, Glenn, if you're ready to go.
Yep. Give me just 1 second. I'm just changing permission real quick because I want to be able to edit something with a particular permission. That should work. All right, let's see. All right, I'm gonna switch screens here. There we go. All right. And I apologize for being a moment late. I was coming from Donuts for Dad at the preschool for my daughter. So I'm Glenn Saunders, partner at Nuage, serve as a solution architect, really working between sales and service, walk you through the application, show you how it can work for you, what it can, and equally as important, what it can't do. So that you understand, we set quantifiable goals, make sure you're mapping through that. I also manage our post implementation service as well, called Stratus, which is continuous process optimization. Background, I graduated with a degree in accounting. Wasn't necessarily what I was in love with doing from a career standpoint. So I got into consulting and started doing ERP implementations. Not too dissimilar from some here. I've experienced with most of the mid-market ERP applications in some form or fashion. Sage, Epicor, Microsoft Dynamics, and some others. But like Louis said, really drank the Kool-Aid with NetSuite. I started with NetSuite in 2012, but really it's been my entire focus since about 2016. So the last, 7 years. I've been completely devoted to NetSuite, and yeah, please ask questions, keep this interactive. I look forward to walking you through this today, and if you don't ask questions, you will get tired of my voice, I'm sure, by the end of this. So but hopefully you're seeing my screen here, and if not, Louis can yell at me. But I'm here and I'm logged in as a controller in a services environment. And I'm using services to show you some of the project management capabilities specifically. And I also have commissions set up in here that we'll talk about. But as you can see, as a controller, I have very specific dashboards, metrics that are displayed here. I can see things like revenue this period versus last, this fiscal quarter to period, last fiscal quarter, and what I was actually doing. I don't know why they do this. This really annoys me. So how easy is it to change things if you have permissions to do so? Right. We do support multi-language, which is what you're seeing in here. That's why this is so kind of garbled up, but I hate the way that those period names are so long. And I apologize. I should have done this earlier. I've done this in almost every demo environment recently, because that takes up way too much space when you write all that out. So all I'm doing here is just changing a label. So I'm going to save that. Now we can fit all this on one page for the most part. Sorry, that's just a pet peeve of mine. But again, this goes to the usability and the configuration of the system to make it match your business requirements. We can quickly see things like a trend graph if we choose to, and we can drill into the details that make up this number, right? So we can go all the way down to an income statement here, looking at last period, looking at consolidated financials, right? So I can look at it by an individual organization as well if you have multiple legal entities, right? I can also look at it this fiscal year to period, and I can look at it by department, class, location, or maybe I want to see it by period or quarter, right? So I can see all of my information here pretty easily. I can drag some of this out. I can also drill into the details that make this number up. And I realize a lot of this is table stakes and all the way down to the journal entry or invoice that represents that number, okay? And this came from a revenue recognition journal entry, I'm quite certain. But the same thing works on expenses. It's table stakes for the most part with regards to financial reporting applications these days. Can also collapse or expand it to the appropriate level of detail. And I can also rename some of these if I choose to, right? So I can customize this here, and perhaps I want this to say revenue. Simple stuff. But notice also I can come down here and I can say, oh, this goes in the revenue section, but maybe I want to have it specific to show just the production department or the engineering or whatever other elements, so that I can create my own financial statements by mixing and matching the dimensions together to generate the type of report that we want to see. Notice it classifies as revenue now. Not that that's a huge deal, but we can export this to Excel, PDF, CSV, Word. We can print and we can email this. We can also schedule these reports. The controller role does not have access to do so, but I'll talk about that when we get to that point. We can also filter this, right? So if I just want to see my class B, but I want to see it by period over the top, and now I can see the revenue just related to that particular classification of services right here. Now, obviously, I don't have any expenses tied to that product category. I probably should. Okay. Lots of flexibility in there. And here we can see this created that GL from a revenue recognition. I know that's not something you all would do. I was just trying to generate some numbers for you all for visibility purposes. But I will touch on a couple of things here. On the communication tab here, you'll notice that we can create tasks, and some of this will bridge over into the CRM side. But this is probably one of the biggest things, is the ability to attach files inside the application. There's also, it doesn't demo well, simply because it takes a little bit longer to load screens. And in a demo, you're solely focused as an end user, but there's a drag and drop functionality that will allow you to drag and drop files from your desktop directly into the NetSuite application to attach in the file cabinet. Okay. And that's pervasive throughout the system. Okay. I'm gonna come back up here. So here we have our reminders on the left-hand side, so we can see things like vendor invoices that need approving, you know, allocation schedules, maybe jobs that are behind schedule, jobs that are identified as being at risk. And as with everything, and you'll see me right click a lot as we go through this today, that's simply so I'm not having to use my back button 100 times. And here we can see, you know, vendor bills that are ready to be approved. All right, let's see. Depending on which workflow they're in, right, there's that one. And I can actually open it up. I can improve it here as well, but maybe I want to check some things for it. And I can load this record up and I can see the details that are in there. So we had some shipping costs, right? I can see what it ties to. If it tied to a particular job we were working on, and we'll talk about what that means, or department class location, I could see it here. I can see there were also some items on it, so maybe we purchased some consumable inventory or anything like that. And we could see a file attachment or message here. All right, so we can pop this up and see this invoice right here. Make sure that matches. It looks like there was a message, so it sent an email to Carol, right? That's my role here. I'm in as Carol as a controller to approve this bill, and I can approve here. We have multiple workflows running, so that's why it's in a demo environment. Sometimes you get some overlap, but. And keep in mind, we can set approvals up on pretty much anything in the system using the workflow engine. So you can define your own processes and procedures for how things are managed. Okay. From a financial perspective, there is no posting. As an invoice is approved, the posting flag gets updated, and then it will be reflected in your financial system. So that's really how NetSuite works. An approval is posting. For those that have worked in other systems that have batch posting processes. So, okay. And coming here, refreshing, we'll notice that my bills to approve dropped off of my list. It's also super easy to add additional things in. So maybe I want to see, you know, milestones that are overdue. And I'm not sure I'm going to have that anything there, so we'll just add in overdue invoices to be safe. Okay. And so it can provide visibility. We can also color code things. So if it's greater than 1, make it red. Right. And so we can kind of drive the engagement and the work in the way that we want to from an end user perspective, or from an administrative perspective to the team, because we can publish these dashboards out as well. Okay. We can top 10 customers by sales. We can see it, you know, this year, right? We can see it in a circle graph like this, where we can see percentages, but maybe we want to see amounts, right? So now we can start to see the different amounts. Okay. Some other visualizations of a KPI meter, save search
Hey,
function.
Glenn,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to slow you down, because I was gonna about tell you that I'm loving this, but nobody else probably is.
Okay.
So I was gonna tell you to speed up, but go back to that where you changed the color of the KPI.
Right here.
No, back another step.
Oh, here.
Yeah. Can I do that between?
So it's gonna pull based on
It's only gonna be greater than. Okay.
yeah, so you have to build your, so if it was, you know, greater than 1, greater than 20, we would want to make it purple. Right, so you can set the
Ah,
between.
okay. Okay, cool.
Well, and keep in mind for everybody who's looking at this and you're saying, I don't give a crap about the financial data. There's a role that you can put specifics of your dashboard of what you want to see here. The functionality is the same, the reports, the KPIs, the stuff. It's just the content changes. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And I can switch roles here as well. But the key idea is you're going to have navigation based on your role in the system. So if you're a project manager, here I can see information about projects, time, expenses to projects. I can put information about different jobs in here, however I want to view it. Same thing on the AP side, AP aging, vendor bills, commissions, payable, things like that. The whole concept here is if I want to come in and add something to my dashboard, it's really easy to do that. So I'm personalizing this now to add in a custom search. I want to see project related information. So I want to see percent of projects completed on time. Yeah, sorry, that's a bad one. Sorry, there's so many searches in here, I don't always know. Right. Let's see. We'll do just my projects. All right, so here we can see different projects that are related here. This is looking for me as the project manager. I'm not sure why that's not showing up. That's annoying. I think because this user doesn't have that access, but you can define any type of search within the system, any record that you want to see, and then have it outlaid on your dashboard here. All right, so if we want to see, let's see, I don't know if there's anything on commissions. So here we can see different commissions. Again, you can personalize your dashboard based on what you want to see in the application. You can also remove stuff and move stuff around. So super easy to do. The system will track everywhere you've been in the last like 10 records. So you can navigate back really quickly. You can also add stuff to shortcuts. And if this color purple is getting on your nerves, you can change the look and feel of the application.
Quick question, Glenn. Do you have anything set up that shows account reconciliation?
Yes. So financial banking, reconcile account statement, and automated cash application. I'll talk about both of these. So this will automatically pull from your bank, and it will pull all that information in from your bank. I just don't have a good example here. So it will match. You can set up different matching rules on how things will be looked at and how they'll automatically match up, and it can help with the reconciliation of your banks. What bank are you currently using?
We're with KeyBank.
KeyBank. I think NetSuite integrates with about 800 different banks, and I'm sure Lourdes or Navina can check that right now to make sure, but that shouldn't be a problem. The other side of this is, and this is fairly new functionality as well, is the system can actually look at your imported bank data and look for customer ACHs that have hit your bank and automate payment of those based on how you set up your different mapping rules. All right.
Okay, how about general ledger account recs?
That is done in PBCS, which I can't remember who had said they had Hyperion experience. But that is actually done through that application. It's a separate module that I don't have access to from this demo account called account reconciliation. And Louis, I don't know if you have the ability to pull up a video on that here in a few minutes. Okay, perfect. So yeah, NetSuite is really good at the bank side of things, but for account reconciliation and period close processing, that's a different application. So,
Okay, thank you, Glenn.
of course, each one of these in and of itself is its own dashboard. So as we navigate through, we want to see specific information about customers, right? We can see a listing here, different things like that. Notice we can set highlighting rules here, right? We can quickly email directly from the system if we choose to, right? So we can say new task, phone call, email. Sorry, I don't know why the system's being sluggish this morning. Okay, so we can have predefined templates that can autofill based on that. We can attach files as well. Yeah. Right, so we can attach different files from within the file cabinet here if we need to. I thought I had one in here. Let's see. Oh, I don't. I'll cancel. Right, so we can just very quickly, very easily send information directly from the application. It will show up in that person's inbox and it can track that communication. And I used a template, so this is what that kind of looks like here. They can respond from email. Now this is coming to me because this is a demo account. Right. And so then if I go to that customer record here. So this works on invoices, all the different elements of the application. And on the communication tab, it shows not only the outgoing message, but once that works its way back through the internet here, it will show the incoming message as well. It's taking so long, but okay. And probably one of the favorite elements is I can come up here on the global search bar and type John, and it looks everywhere in the application where it finds that, including down to sales tax and contact information. But I can also just look at customer information as well, right? So it's looking, you're probably saying Jones is not John, but the primary contact on that record is John, so that's why it shows up here. Any questions on just the overall navigation before we jump into more of the operational elements of the application? So one of the things, notice that there are a variety of different roles within the application, right? So we can set up, these come out of the box, I should say, based on what version of NetSuite you end up with. And then you can configure and customize these roles to your heart's content. So what I will do is I'm going to go in as a sales role and we'll touch a little bit. I'm doing this a little bit out of order, but to me, it makes more sense. Since it seems more people are going to be focused on the operational aspects of managing, as opposed to the financial side, and we can close with financials, right? So as a sales role, I can see information related to new customers, sales, all the type of stuff you would expect. right? But I can also create new relationships. So we have leads and contacts, right? We have opportunities or relationships maybe we're building. Okay. And so from that, I can actually create various relationships or orders that we may potentially do. And we can say, you know, we have an estimate or an opportunity. Actually, let me do it from an opportunity perspective. So maybe we're talking in talks with a author about producing one of their audiobooks, for instance. So you guys will get what is it? I'm blanking on it. I don't even Dance with the Dragon. I can't even remember what the book he's supposed to be working on because he's been working on it for so long. But he's never going to finish it, but that's neither here nor there. So we can start to track this type of information within here. We can track contact information about who's involved, right? What their role in the process is. Okay. We can track who the salesperson who's working with them on it is. In this case, it's going to default to Will because that's me. We can forecast, and we can also create projects, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we can save this. Oops. It does want a company to associate it with. So we can create one really quickly.
And as Glenn is going through these motions, you know, I think this looks pretty similar, feels pretty similar to how you do things in Airtable and in Salesforce. And just bear in mind, from a metadata standpoint, every single field, every single box, you know, even the little asterisks with the you know, kind of what's required versus not, all of that can be defined as you would expect. So the intention is to take Salesforce, which looks and feels pretty similar, Airtable, kind of the same vein, and then some of the financial information married all together on these different forms.
Yep. And in fact, let's see. Do this real quick. I will show you. I created a custom metadata table or record. Of course, the salesperson doesn't have access. So we have this opportunity, and obviously you would probably want a salesperson to do that. I will switch to a project manager role here, make sure I associate it to the right opportunity. And here I can create a new project. Okay. I can start to assign who's responsible, who's the manager on that. Make it Mark, what the status is, so it's pending, it's not awarded yet. And so you don't have to watch me, I created a template. Not to say you won't have elements where you're creating your own, but this will fill in a lot of this information for me. I'm just going to set some of the financial information here that I want to track. Okay. Make sure everything's hunky-dory down here. And save. Okay, that's building my schedule, if you will, based on the template I've defined. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the be all end all, but it's automating the entry of the data around the steps that have to happen for this to occur from a production standpoint. So what it's going to do is it's going to assign different tasks. And I can define an infinite number of tasks in there, right? And while that's showing, let's see, we can create as many project templates as we want. So here's the one, here's a listing of the ones that are available. And here's just one I put for audiobook production. and we can see the different schedules. Right, we can see an overview where we can see how they are managed and what, if they're a milestone or if they have actual work. Oh, and I built way too much lag time in here because I'm a moron. So here we can see we have predecessors and relationships, you know, different things like that. We can view it as a Gantt chart. And this is going to be infinitely long because I'm not very smart. I've been working a lot in production, manufacturing production. So I was looking at that more from an hour perspective, but based on the start and end date, it can give you that. There we go. So we can see how long it would take to do something, right? So depending on your length of time that you would have. Right? And then we can assign different resources. So who's responsible for it, who within the organization or outside of the organization, right? And so this should be. Yep, so here, same thing. Right, we can see our task list here, whether it's a milestone or not, what the predecessors are. We can also come in here and say, we've already got the artwork or it's going to be done outside, so we don't need this step. All right, so I can come in here and say, for this particular project, I really don't need this step, so we can just delete it. Or maybe it's going to take longer than inspected, or it's going to take less. So we only need a 5-day lag time. Because again, I thought that was thinking in terms of hours, not days. Right, so we can start to build our project plan within this. Is this making sense for how you go about doing projects, or what additional information are you used to tracking in this, or what other, like, I want to make sure I'm covering relevant elements versus just going through the motions with NetSuite here.
That's pretty close, Glenn. And that's what we were taught. So this is what we would have in Airtable currently. On scheduling the build itself.
And
maybe an additional question is how close it is to Airtable. Are there any elements that you've wanted that Airtable has limitations, whether it be reporting, whether it be the ability to kind of identify resources, anything you guys can share? Because you know, we know it's a Friday, so we want to be as engaging as possible if you guys are open to it.
What we find Airtable to be pretty good. I mean, the only thing is that it doesn't connect to our other systems, right?
Okay.
Yep. Now you'll notice here I have metadata elements associated with this, but I didn't set permissions for this user to have access. So if I switch though, I want to show a couple of things here, and I think this will help bridge that gap between what you're doing in Airtable and what is possible within NetSuite. Okay. So back here, same record, just different role here. And if we go to the relationship side, here's the metadata. Okay. Now you're probably going to look at this and be like, okay, this has nothing that we would need. What is this? Right. So this is the artist, which is also known in NetSuite from a commission and royalty standpoint is called a partner. Okay. And I'm just doing this quick because nobody wants to sit here and watch me enter data. You know, 6, whatever it is. Right. We can have tag elements. We can, you know, I think I put nice David Attenborough in here as narrator. All right, we can
Hey,
attach.
can I copy and paste? Can I copy and paste in that text box?
Mhm. Absolutely. So I'm copying from a PDF right there. Yep, and this is what we call a rich text field. I don't have to have a name, so just right. Save. But that you probably need a little bit more information there, I would bet. So one of the things that NetSuite allows you to do, which is what, from what I understand about Airtable, it's just super flexible. And you're getting a little bit more under the hood here, but this is the custom record type called metadata. I've associated it to a project, to the artist or partner record, and I only added 3 fields here. Okay. What other fields would you want to add? And just throw some out.
Yeah, so there's about, I don't know, 30, 40 fields currently utilize, like long descriptions, author, release date.
Ooh, release date's a good one. Okay. The reason that I'm showing this is I can create all of those in here, right? I can control how they display, how they default, where they show up. So, all of those different elements, this is just you configuring how you want to interact with those elements within this, trying to talk as I type, I apologize, in the application. And so here's the different fields. We have checkboxes, currency, date, time, decimal, document, email address, freeform text, image, inline HTML, integer, list record, which links to another record in NetSuite and creates a relationship for reporting. And yeah, there's a bunch of them in here. So we can do that as freeform text, save and new, whoops. And we maybe want the cover, and we want to make that an image. New. We can have a document, or we'll call this I'm just making some stuff up. Okay. And save.
The other critical piece as he went through that is we can also define access. So who has access, especially when we talk about financial information, or critical pieces you don't want certain folks on the organization to see or edit, as you would expect.
We can enter anything in here. We can, in the file cabinet, go out, and we're probably going to end up with a picture of my kids, which I apologize for. Same thing here. Oh. Sorry, I was trying to get to, there we go. Right. So we can start to add any of this information in here, right? However we want this to be viewed. Sorry, it didn't take that. Save. And so then it's hung directly off of the job record here. Okay, but that's not really showing me anything. I want to see the information. So what I can do is I can come in here and I can tweak this view and say my meta view. And then I can say, add all. I'm going to add them all. Okay, and now my relationship tab, it can show me all that information. And if we go in to look at that, so notice it'll also show up in my global search. The image can show, the PDF can be viewed quickly and easily. You know, all of the tags, all the information can be included, makes it easy. And again, this links to the job. It also links to the partner record in the application. We can track ACH payments, all those different types of relationships here. Any questions on the project side or resources? Are there resources or particular people you're attaching to projects to do the work? Or is it more just about tracking that it gets done?
It's regularly used in project management to link and, see workloads of certain freelance operatives, see functionings of studio timing, a lot of linked resource management within multiple databases.
Okay. So what you can do in here is I can come in and I can pick a particular resource and I can say, I think it's going to take Abby about 90 hours of work on this particular job between now and November. And I can define it as a hard or soft allocation. It's a single event. It starts today, or it can be a daily event and it's 8 hours a day for so many days. Okay. Whoops, I wanted to smooth that out over that time period. Right, so I can start to build this, and a resource could be an independent contractor, it could be studio booth, the time, like it could be any type of element you want to define. And then it can show, and we use this internally when we're looking at projects. Obviously, we're a service organization at our heart. So, and so then we can start to visualize over or underutilized resources based on their availability. And we can look at it daily, weekly, monthly. And notice here, Abby has 90 hours allocated between that. Right, again, we can look at it daily, we can look at it monthly, weekly. What resource type is it? Is it a generic resource, which would be like studios? Is it a vendor? Is it an employee? And we can look at specific resources. We can also create our own view into this, should we choose to. Oh, I'm reading a question from Eric. To set templates for production, for instance, we currently use Airtable formulas to set key dates automatically based on the publication date. Example, date, recording due, date, editing due. He works as a production manager. Absolutely. So within the template itself, and I'll come back to the resource side. I apologize. I'm not trying to jump around, but in the template itself, we can set the scheduling method to be forwards or backwards. Okay, so if my scheduling method is backwards, it's going to look at the due date of it, and then it's going to backfill what has to happen to complete those projects. And within, let's just say, production backwards. Productive, 8 plan time entries, financial, project expense, regular, save. Okay, sorry, have to get through that process. And And so then I can say based on the task, here we have, production, right? And we can start to build our structure of finish no later than whatever the date is of the due date. And this can drive that backward scheduling based on the predecessors. Right, so I can say this is a finish to start. We've got 5 days of lag time as we're building it through, very similar to what we did here. And I can switch this to backwards as well. And I can even go ahead and pre-assign resources to it as well. Okay. And so then if we were to create a new project using that template, and we'll just say, and I'm going to be lazy here and just assign it to this particular customer, project manager. And we'll just say this one's awarded, and we'll use that template again. Now notice this is looking at backward scheduling based on that end date we've defined. Okay. Yeah, the end date may not be visible here. We would have to show that, but you can use that to build that back. So based on the due date or the completion date of the project. Resource allocation, again, notice it can look at it by job as well, based on what's going on. And I do apologize, some of this is just demo data, so you're seeing a variety of different stuff in here, if you will. We can see what all is going on for a given time frame here. And then we can also come in and create our own filters. So start date, project, customer. How do we want to filter this data to show? Is it based on the resource and the resource class, department, subsidiary, or vendor? That's part of the problem. So, and again, we can view this as a grid based on the hours, right? Here we can see Abby based on her calendar schedule, what she's doing on a weekly basis, number of hours. Notice it just smoothed it out based on the number of days in a given week. And it will show where you have overcommitted resources based on what you have defined as your calendar. And of course, we can come in and create a new resource allocation right here. So that you don't have to actually go into the project and do that. Right, so there it shows, so right there. Does that make sense? Does that look like something would work for you all? Silence is agreement.
I think so, but I'll defer to Ben.
Yeah, so I think I'm just thinking back to some of the things you were showing before about with the backward scheduling and how that is used in the project setup, and I'm just sort of mentally comparing to current methods. Sorry.
No worries. I'm guessing you have a resource constraint kind of formula built up that based on this, you takes an average of 20 days to do X, 30 days to do Y, or 3 days, whatever it is type of thing, and scheduling.
It's more about less of some kind of. It's about days until we can get such and such stage done.
Yeah.
Just an assignment with a deadline in all practical sense.
Okay, so really just getting into here on the project task, exactly what needs to occur. Sorry, I don't know why that's dragging. Let go. Sorry, my mouse is acting up. And again, we can set, predecessors, different resources down to the individual level. These are generic resources, right? You don't have to put cost in here if you're not worried about cost, but expected hours or duration that it may take. And then we can have predecessors. Notice we can put files and notes in on that as well. I'm sorry, I don't know why my mouse.
Trouble with my mic earlier. I think it's working now, though.
In
You guys
here,
hear me?
so. And
Ben,
notice
are
we
you
can add.
managing? Oh, go ahead.
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna ask Ben, if are you managing the resources as well? So you kind of have, we'll call it a pseudo HR person who's reaching out, building those relationships, or does that fall more into the contract side negotiation?
For us, it's very work for hire. It's very much a single project basis, reaching out for an individual book to bring on. It's not really like, it's not so much HR or having someone it's for external people that we are contracting with more often than anything else.
Understood.
In terms of assigned resources.
Yeah, in NetSuite speak, typically you can do those as generic resources, or you can do them as vendors. I'm assuming you're paying them for their time. So typically what you'll do is on the vendor record here. Will you? All right, I'm just thinking of people with voices, and whether or not they can be used on a project. Right, so if they're a project vendor or a project resource, now they'll be available for scheduling. And we can set terms and how we pay them, how we get billed, 1099s, all sorts of that financial stuff, right? Because it's all in one system here, even down to their default expense account based on what they do. Here, I'll just say advertising for lack of a better GL account set up.
And as you would expect, they have the ability to access NetSuite, track time and expense as well.
Yep. Right, so now it shows as available. Okay. And maybe it won't start until the 23rd. And it'll last that couple of days. And so again, it's just building me my project plan, allowing me to track dates, deliverables, things like that within here. And then as items are completed, right, you have visibility, and again, you can see all of that information in here, what's been done, who's been assigned, what's milestones are due. Right within here, all of these are just different searches within here. And then if it's a milestone, right, we can come in and actually mark this completed. Do you have folks who are entering time against the projects as they're doing them, or the jobs, or is it more done externally and just kind of matched up later?
Yeah, that's done externally.
Okay, we do have the ability to allow them to track time. We can set project budgets up, and we can also create purchase orders. So if we have voiceover work and we want to create a PO for, I don't know, an agency or something, right? So we can come in here and notice the partners also show up in this vendor listing. These were the 3 that I've set up for commissions that I'll talk about here momentarily. But we can also come in here and add in who we're contracting with. Stupid one, sorry. We're not in Germany. Guys. Okay. And then from a financial perspective, and I know this may or may not matter to some of them, some of you all, but what this allows me to, I'm going to pick one with the right freaking, what this is messing up is I have multiple legal entities in here, and I keep picking someone who's, because I'm in as the administrator, I'm seeing all of it, and so it's picking a subsidiary that's incorrect or incorrect country. But I can define, my categories, which will drive the accounting. Notice that the project defaulted because I created it from that project. Whether or not it should be billed, again, I know that doesn't necessarily matter. Operations. And then if we want to assign it to a particular project or project task or a project activity code. Right. So I can cut, oh, I picked a wrong vendor. There we go. That's fine. So this can be then sent if you have to communicate this out externally for the vendors. Notice we can also schedule, and this is using CRM functionality, but it's pervasive, right? So if we're going to have a particular date where we're going to do initial voice over work, or not voiceover, but narration, right? Who are the attendees that need to be there? Do we want to notify them by email? Oh, that one doesn't have an email, right? What other resources need to be available? So we need the recording room A. What time frame is that resource available? Where is it located? What users can use it? What's the default view? How do we manage the daily increments? Okay, just for instance. Okay, and this can start to give me some calendar visibility into that. Okay. All right, and so now if I go to my activities dashboard here, I can start to look at calendars by different recording rooms to see what's available and what's in use. I can look at it in a day. I can look at it as an agenda, right? A week, like we were just looking at it. And I can quickly start to add stuff in. I don't know if this is useful for you all or not, but I'm just trying to show some of the flexibility and capabilities of the system to help manage some of the project management aspects that you might utilize.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Ah, hallelujah. So could you look at, say, we have 3 studios, 3 booths. Can we view on a particular day all 3 at once to see, say, which one would be available?
Yep. So if I go here, this is looking at all, or my calendar. And as I'm an administrator, I can see everything. So I would see all of the bookings that we have, but then I could also just look at recording room A or whatever it is. So I can start to filter it down. And I can create different groups as well to group calendars together. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
See the group here, and it'll show me what's
We could create a
available.
group. We could create a group of all of those studios and then pull it up right there on that counter. It would show us everything that's in-house that day.
That's correct. Yep. And then you can use this to schedule the scheduler as a little portlet here. So we could create a group that would show us, you know, Studio A, Studio B, Studio C, or all studios. And then we could actually start to build, create an event based off what we see is available here. And let's see this here. The other aspect of this is it ties to the purchase order or the project, right? So I can create stuff that relates to either the project or the transaction that's associated with it. So if I go back to I'm getting there in a roundabout way, but there we go. Right, same thing exists here. And it will tie it. Oh. Right. We're gonna do it on the 6th, but we're gonna start. Notice it tells me we've got conflict. So maybe we're gonna start at 2, but we need it until 6. Who are our attendees? What's the availability? Recurrence related records, it's going to tie it here and contact here. So again, if I wanted to come in and add in right there, related records. So it links all of those different aspects together because the system is one platform, right? So it knows who's a vendor, who's a project resource, you know, all the different elements that go into that. Okay. And again, back here on my activities side of things, I'll start to see my calendaring. Any questions on that piece? What other elements are you tracking with regards to projects? Are you tracking cost of projects to understand what it costs to actually produce a particular piece of media?
Yeah, so we actually track narrator costs, art costs. And then from a financial side, that becomes an asset. And
Yeah.
so from a, you know, accounts payable finance side, it's an asset that we amortize over the time of the publication.
Okay. Okay. So there's a couple of ways to do that. You could do it with amortization schedules based on the expected useful life of that, or you could, you know, capitalize it as a fixed asset and run depreciation on it.
Yeah.
Either one would probably work for you all, I'm guessing, because you're not looking at. It is an asset, but I wouldn't classify it necessarily as a fixed asset of like, it's a car, it's got a 5-year life type of thing. So,
Right.
but you could potentially do that. It's just how you want to manage that. And amortization schedules are pretty easy to set up in here, right? So you just define the template and then you can see the actual schedules. So as you're accruing information to it, like prepaid insurance is probably the easiest. You know, how long does it start? What's the offset and what's the period? This is the, yeah. a 12-month offset prepaid expenses. So this could be any account and what it would go to. And that, of course, all of this can tie to the project. So when we look at our related records here, this will show us any and all transactions associated to the project and their financial impact. It'll start to build the cost structure up, both for actual and committed cost to the project here. And that gives a lot of reporting capabilities. So project profitability is probably the biggest. And you can define the layout here, but if you just want to see project profitability by month or period, because we can also tie the revenue generated from the job to this as well to see what it cost us to make, what we made, and then tie the commissions to it as well, so you know the royalty fees you're paying. So check the agenda, make sure I'm covering everything. So this is, see it captured at a committed cost, but it's not an actual cost yet because we actually haven't received the invoice from the vendor yet. But same thing on the revenue side, right? So as we start to sell this, it can go through there and we can define different avenues for how we manage the profitability and what rows, columns, and I know this is more of a finance thing, but what columns can show up, what our profitability calculation is. Lots of flexibility for how we define that.
Yeah, so two things I would throw at you as complications in this area. One is we're dipping our toe into producing where self-pub authors have been in the past, and now they want us to produce their audiobooks.
Okay.
And so what we'll do is they'll have a royalty rate. So whatever the cost is to produce that, we'll keep track of that. And that's pretty cool, the committed and then the actual cost, we can do that. But we would earn a royalty rate that would burn that down then. And so it would be at, say, 25% until we recoup our cost. And then as we pay out to that author, it would bump up to 40% of our revenue.
Okay. So, and this is where how you set up the commission, and I know you call it royalties. It's the same thing. It's the same concept. And that was actually where I was getting ready to go. Now, so I've got a couple of schedules in here, but I'm going to talk through one and then I'll set one up. So notice here, this is categorized by our product categories. We'll talk a little bit about what that is. How often do we look at it? What are we commissioning on? And then what's eligible? So in this case, we're commissioning on the gross sales dollars per period categorized by our classes, but we're only paying out what's collected. And then we're looking at a marginal percentage rate. So 0 to 100,000 is going to be at 2, 100 to 200 is going to be at 3, 200 to 400 is going to be at 4. Well, I mean, I'm saying the top number, but you can get the idea, and so on and so forth. Okay. So if we wanted to create a new one, and we tell it the company, so once I know it's a test. What are we commissioning on? There's also a custom field here, or what we call an alternative sales amount. If there's any type of deviations or calculations that need to occur on what's actually available for commission. But if it's just straight gross sales dollars, that's pretty easy. Do we want to calculate per period or per transaction or per transaction line, right? Period's kind of the easy one. And then what are we categorizing it by? Okay, so we can define classes, items, locations, or commissionable item search. You can also, again, do it off of a custom field. Actually, I don't think you can categorize by it. You can calculate it based on a custom field. So classes is kind of easy, and then what's eligible. Now, most of yours, because you're going through like Audible, I'm assuming they are just sending you a check based on what was downloaded or purchased within a month. So I'm guessing most of it's going to be on collections anyway, based on the cash that comes in the door.
Yeah, except for it's by quarter.
It's by what?
Quarter.
Oh, okay. So change it to quarter. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to talk to you. There's a lot of different elements here. And then is it linear or marginal? Right, so, and is it based on a percentage or amount? Flat rate. And marginal is obviously as you go down to the progressive back bracket. Yep. So it pays out the brackets based on where you are. Whereas whether it's linear, it's going to take the top bracket based on your achievement, more like a sales quota. So. And again, yeah, 150,000, whatever it is. You can define the brackets. And the percentage breakdowns. Is this helpful at all for how you would look at doing something like this?
I think so. We may have to do some digging and some setup to do it exactly how we would want it, but I think the elements are there.
Okay. And then, so as you set those up, you can assign different partner or create the plan, right? Of these here. What schedules are in that plan, what partners are on that plan, if there's any calculations or periods. I picked a bad one. Let's go to the next one. So here we can see both of these are on there. Here's the partners that are included on this particular plan, right? And then here's the calculations that have been defined based on the plans that I have set up. Notice we can see what's been authorized, what's eligible by that. Okay, and the period breakdown here. Sorry, I had to go back and backdate some data, so some of this is a little bit of garbage data from the past, but I just wanted to have something relevant to show versus just one or two transactions within this. Okay. And I also created a saved search called partner advances, where we can see what we've paid them in this general ledger account as an advance. So we can match those up. We would want to look at the potentially customizing to reduce that down or negate that from the commission payable. I haven't really thought too deeply about it. I wanted to make sure I could track it and get the commission calculation, because there's some things we can do for the actual calculation of commission to make sure that's reduced down. But what will happen is as those things go through, it's going to give you by period, what date should it be eligible by. What it should calculate as. And then we can authorize it. And it'll go through and process those. And you can still make adjustments after the fact, and that's what I want to show. I'll give you, for instance, NetSuite uses their commission module for how they pay their partners, right? Because you're negotiating direct with NetSuite, they pay us on the back end a commission percentage based on a variety of factors. And so that's and they use that to manage us. And then they throw in the wrinkle of, well, if it goes through financing, it's this. So it's a convoluted process for them as well to calculate it based on those different things. But then it'll show, whoops, I want to show this. Right, these elements in here, and this probably should be pending approval, and we can see by transaction or by period what they've achieved, and then the other commission that could potentially go in there. So this could be where we would want to look at any of the draws against it or advances coming out. We would use this to negate some of that. So that's how we could potentially manage that. To negate those, see, we've got this was calculated, this would be the reduction of the draw against that, and then we would just have to mark down that draw amount from a financial transaction perspective. I know this is a big area, so what questions, comments do you have on this piece?
I'm good, Glenn.
Okay. Sorry, I figure you guys are getting tired of hearing me run my mouth. Since we're talking about the royalty management side, one thing I did want to show here for a moment, albeit briefly. So NetSuite gives a pretty good availability to create your own data sets workbooks. So if you want to understand things by sales over time, and these are all charts, graphs that can be put on your dashboard as well. So understanding what's selling or sales by artist, right? Sales by medium, right? Whether it's Audible, whatever it is, right? So we can start to see Simon Sinek, he had 200,000 within Q1, Stephen King, John Meacham. So we can start to track this information for reporting purposes. And we can even create this down to a gross margin level should we need to, with regards to the projects and the cost of the production, so that we can get an all-encompassing financial picture of what occurred. Did we make money? What artists are trending? Who's not? I realize some of that is data that exists outside of the NetSuite ecosystem. But certainly these are the various ways in which it can be exposed. And again, you can create your own, you can figure out how you want budget versus remaining work. Some of these are out of the box for what they can show, and some are more bespoke, or like I took one standard one and just customized it based on what I wanted to see. Okay. And there's also a Project 360 dashboard. And this is probably just going to show a couple, yeah. And it can show budget at completion. This got more to do with budgeting, but noticed on the resource side, tasks that are resourced, tasks that are overdue. Right, we can get into the details of exactly what those tasks are by each. And within a given task, like this project, there's actually a dashboard per project, so you can go in and see specific information just to that project. And just different elements within the project here. So what does the import process for data, sales report, spreadsheet, workbooks we get from our distribution partners? All right. So within NetSuite, there is this import tool. Now, if there's stuff we want to automate, we have a SFTP connector that we can go grab those files and do that with. This is actually how we do most of our data conversion. Now, you all, if you're getting a tremendous amount of those, you may want to look at a tool. And we use this as part of our data conversion to save you money and make our lives easier. Oh, I thought I had it in here. There is a tool called Smart Connect that allows me to upload data direct from an Excel spreadsheet into NetSuite. If I want to, so I can just say, here's the data, here's the mapping, and click a button and it goes. Based on permissions, of course. But we always have the ability to come in here and say, for a transaction, you know, they've already paid us, so it's a cash sale, or it's an invoice, whatever it is. And then we can select the CSV file that we're going to upload. And that would pull in that information. Right. Use a journal template because I'm cheating. How do we handle our add or update? And notice it just gives you a list of all the fields and the mappings. And once you set, you can save the CSV import so that you're not having to map it every time. And all you have to do then is under your custom import export here, you have save CSV imports. And you can go directly to that. Does that answer your question, Emily?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. So there's a variety of different ways to get the information in. And I apologize for doing this, man. I'm going to ask you if I can take just a quick 2-minute break to go to the restroom real quick. Too much coffee this morning, if that's all right.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Lourdes, why don't you pull up just our implementation methodology slide, and I can talk through that. You know, as Glenn alluded to, there's kind of the nature of like, all right, we've got all this data. How are we going to bring it into the system? We've got these different applications. How are we going to consolidate everything? And a lot of that is as you would expect, CSV. There is, you know, a bit of work on your end to massage the data. We put it into the application. It spits out duplicates. We're going to have to turn to you to get an idea of, okay, how are we going to put this into the system? Data, of course, being at the forefront, something we really start to tackle early on in the implementation. That's also tied in with what we call personalization sessions. So we come in, we basically have our consultants say, hey, here's what we've heard in the sales cycle. Here's what we've heard from kind of the demonstrations, the discoveries. And let's revisit some of these areas in greater detail. So we use those personalization sessions to really define how the system should interact with you all on a day-to-day basis, by department, by role, right? And then after those critical pieces, we are going into really system configuration. And that system configuration is us behind the scenes, taking what we heard, trying to map it. And when we map it, it's never done right the first time. It's usually an iterative 2 or 3 times before we get it absolutely perfect for how you should be working in the system. of course, full circle, as we talked about suite success early on, because NetSuite has pre-configured workflows, adopts leading practices, there's a lot in NetSuite that you probably don't do today. And we are going to push you all to adopt best practice, point blank. There's, of course, the ability to do things how you do things today, but we are going to challenge you. And really what that does is not only does it help us process map everything out, but it also drives that enhancement that I think most folks are looking for on new ERP. So you don't just get a carbon copy of what you're doing today. That, of course, folds into our user acceptance testing, making sure everybody knows how to use the application. And then our goal, of course, is making sure that go live is a non-event. But I like to use the analogy, somewhat kind of running behind you as you first learn how to ride the bike, making sure we're helping you with things like your first financial close. And we typically recommend our managed service offering for the first 6 months, which is post go live support, really addressing any phase 2 considerations, any enhancements, any challenges you may have from a training or user acceptance standpoint. So that in a nutshell is how we do things. And usually implementations are anywhere between 4 to 5 months. Any questions on our implementation? I can dive much deeper if there are, but right now probably not super prevalent to today's demonstration.
All right, good timing. I'm back.
Right.
Get back to Zoom here.
Thanks for that, Louis.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say one of the other things is just from a tracking standpoint, as things are concluded, you'll be able to see the actual time it takes for people to do that, or simply people saying this has been completed or started. So you can get into that task management of understanding what's done, what's not done for a given project, and particularly on the project task side. So if I switch back to my project manager role here, sorry, I went into the administrator more from a visibility into the metadata because I had just created that custom record, right? But we can see utilization by project, burn, have all different types of looks into the project for how we want to see percentage of completion based on work or milestones, right? We can see which projects are staffed, which ones aren't. Right? We can create all these different views and looks into how we want to see things regarding projects. We can calculate, we can have different job types for tracking different production methods against those. Okay. And I'm guessing probably one of the biggest things is making sure the artist is attached to the project that your job production that you're working on. So again, showing how we can add those fields and functionality in, super easy to do. And of course, ties into the CRM for how things get done. We can see records where we've recently been, both from a task standpoint, resource allocation within here. What other elements from a project standpoint are you looking at? So I know you don't bill from projects because it's more based on usage, but just understanding what is needed from the project management's perspective.
I had a question, kind of metadata operations on the projects. Basically how it works is when we acquire a new title, we acquire all the metadata and start delivering it out to our partners for pre-orders while production is going on, while artwork is creating final covers. In order to do that, all our metadata needs to be sent out in Onix. It's a XML language.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm very familiar with XML, but not Onix. So it would just be, I'm assuming what the XML, the XSD file associated to the XML, which would define the data schema. So knowing how to export that and what names and naming convention would need to be exported, but that's not shouldn't be a heavy lift from our perspective. So, yeah, I've had plenty of experience with XML. But I'm not familiar with that particular format. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, it's Onix 3.0. It's by a company called Editor. It's the standard for publishing. So yeah, it has tags for specified metadata, ONIX. So it's Onix 3.0. The company is Editor, EDITUER, I believe.
Beginning.
Yeah, Editor there. So really there's tons of fields available for it. Ideally, we would want to build out all the metadata fields possible. With all the metadata tags, so we could export that and distribute it out to partners. And then kind of on just right now, our system is very raw, but it's pretty much just a database, like a 4D database. If I'm wanting to just look at projects, I guess that's what we call them in here, projects, titles, manipulate the data, filter, or say update specific metadata fields on 500 titles at once. Can that all be done?
Yes.
Okay.
So a couple of different ways. And I'm going to walk you through what's probably a little more detailed, but based on talking with you guys, I think this will be useful. One of the biggest things within NetSuite to make your life easier is the ability to create your own lookups or inquiries into the database. You can basically think of it as writing a SQL statement for anybody that knows data structures, or just I need to filter and control what I can filter, or like on an Excel spreadsheet. It's called a save search within NetSuite. So this is going to be looking at production jobs. I can say whether or not it's shared. I always just share everything in demo accounts. If I want to filter it, I can filter the initial listing of it. I can say what we want to show up here. Notice it does link to metadata elements. So I can pull in title information. Now your metadata may live some on the project and some of it may be an external record. So some of that will just come down to how we want to set up the database for controlling that. But super easy to do that in here, right? And then on my filters, I can even filter by that in here. Maybe I want to filter by the project manager, whatever it may be. And so now I can, right, I can type in book and it's going to look just for the book. Like that. Well, because there's only one, it went to it. I hate when it does that. Now, as far as making updates, there's one thing. That's going in circles here. Okay, so you see this button here?
Yep.
If I turn this on, it's going to let me edit certain fields within the project. I can't edit everything depending on where it is. So I can edit certain aspects of it. I guess I don't have any here. So I can edit it directly in this user interface you're seeing here. The other option is you can create what's called a mass update, or you can do a CSV import to update that information. So if you need to update the title associated to a variety of different jobs, you could probably do it via mass update, because you would have some common denominator across the different production jobs or tasks that would relate to that title, if you may. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
And
use
the
the
way,
project ID as a primary key and update relevant fields. Yep.
exactly. And the way that works is this is the mass update field, and it's going to look very similar. So if we go here and we say, yeah, we'll do it that way, but project, and we can say, I only want where my project manager is going to be Catherine. And here are the fields that are available for mass update. So I want to set all of that to Mark. I'm moving it from Catherine to Mark, right? So as long as it's available here, and custom fields should be available in this. If not, there's like I said, there's a CSV import, and it's very simple to update those. You just export the data and then import it back in with the relevant data. So we do that a lot with a variety of different things. So. That's really all I had on projects. I don't know if there's, it's more about setting up the structure, managing the timing of it. Are there any other elements on the project or resourcing, reporting that you would like to see?
How about external access to sales reports? Like if we wanted like a portal for partners to be able to log into and see how their titles are doing.
Yep. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. As usual, I'm going to switch to my administrator. And knowing you guys, I'm gonna guesstimate something here, but I'm gonna show just the core. So if I go to Jill, okay. Oh man, do I not have it enabled in here? So there is something called the Advanced Partner Center where you can put all of that information. However, it will look and feel just like NetSuite. I thought I had that. Let's see something here. Crap. I'll show you that here in a second. I swear I thought I had that in here. Whoops. Advanced partner. Sorry, I forgot to check the box. And I'll give you a for instance. So we log into NetSuite's corporate NetSuite account. So here I can say give access. They have the Advanced Partner Center, and we're just going to call it. Okay, save. And this is not configured in any way, so I hope you'll bear with me just a moment, because it won't have like the specific information. But you can all put this in there in the way you want it to be seen. and I'll give you a quick glimpse of what our partner portal looks like for the other. Right, so they
You
can
forgot
see.
where you met your wife?
No, I would put in just my name. I was just putting in Glenn, and then it said, and then it said you can't have the name. The answer must be unique.
Glenn's a big George Foreman fan.
The griller, the boxer.
Just how he named his, what is it, like 7 kids, all George and Georgina.
Georgina,
I was like,
Georgina.
not me. Says the guy who's Louis the Fifth and got Louis the Sixth.
That's true. I'm guilty.
So again, this is yeah. But you can create your own dashboards for these individuals that can show them that information. Now, this will look and feel very much like NetSuite. And sometimes people don't want that. They want a more branded experience. You can do that with what's called Suite Commerce My Account, where you can tailor it to, yeah, see, this doesn't have access. But you can tailor it to the way they want to see things. But you can set up scorecards. You can allow them to see different information, related to, and you can lock this down too, right? So they can see sales information here. You can give them access to save search information. They can have access to sales by item reports that relate to what has been sold from a title perspective or class perspective, depending on how we want to set that up in here.
Great.
And I'll give you a quick peek of what one that's actually configured looks like. Let's throw it back there. Now, granted, there's a lot of custom stuff in here, but you can see here we have a tier scorecard. We can run, commission reports, right? We can run sales reports. And this is actually NetSuite's corporate account. I'm probably not supposed to be showing this right now, so pretend you never saw this, but and you can do even custom things, like we have this custom program. We have my sales metrics. There's all sorts of custom stuff in here that they've done for us, because they've had this partner program since about 2004. And to say it's changed dramatically would be an understatement of the century. So, and their system's exceedingly slow because it's been utilized since 1999. So, but yeah, so there are options there. And I'm assuming you would do that at the artist or partner level for the person you're actually paying out royalties to.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be too hard. We would just need the XSD file, which defines the data schema. And then when we're looking at the metadata elements from a customization standpoint, let's see, for instance, what I would do on that metadata record, and depending on where it lives, I would just make sure that each ID here would map to the actual name of the field. Yeah, that's the only thing I would do. It's gonna always have cust record, but you would just replace it with the metadata they want, the way they want it structured, and then you've got your built-in XSD kind of mapping.
Okay.
We do support multiple legal entities. I've talked about that a little bit, but here you can see a visualization of that. Right, so if there's multiple legal structures, We can filter data on our dashboard relevant to just that particular location. All right, so it'll actually update and show me all my KPIs. I know I'm in, and you're only seeing one KPI here, but I'm just using this as an example. What other elements have we not covered? We talked about commissions and royalty. We touched on CRM with opportunity, contacts, task and events. We touched on production scheduling. Yeah, we did kind of breeze over the reporting and accounting side, but understanding that this group is a little more broadly focused. So here's an example of that sales by partner report, and then you can actually drill into the details that make it up. So,
Can I expand on that Onix a little bit more as well?
of course.
So I guess a couple questions. One, could we connect to FTPs directly from here? So I could deliver the Onix files directly?
Yep, we have an SFTP connector that we utilize, that we built specifically for transmission of data such as that.
Okay. And some of our partners, they don't all receive the exact same metadata. It's okay to send them more than they receive, but sometimes they need custom setups within the Onix. And one of our partners, specifically Apple, requires like pricing information to be converted to tier structures and stuff. I think I already know the answers to these. I'm just kind of giving you full rundown of how we operate to give you a better idea, but I'm sure all that can be programmed in.
Yep, absolutely. So you could create different XSD structures by customer. And again, setting up the SFTP mapping obviously is a critical piece. And for instance, I think it's in our development account. Yeah. This
And
is
Glenn,
some of our SFTP setting.
in the chat, Emily was asking about contract management, rights management.
That's why I came over here. Yeah. All right. So document retention, some of that will depend on what type of documentation you're wanting to keep, storage size, things like that. I will say, whoops. You know, there are a lot of different document management solutions. Probably the biggest is going to be Box. All right, why is that not showing? This is basically the app store for NetSuite. What the heck is going on? That like always shows first.
If you type in Box again, it was in the third row.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is probably one of the biggest well-known ones is Box. You can buy a terabyte of storage space. NetSuite natively has it, of course, where it stores in the file cabinet. It's not entirely optimized or as secure as it would be in a box. I'm just going to be honest. Again, my role here is to tell you the truth and make sure you know what it can and can't do. So that's one piece for that. And then one of the other things that we also have in here, and I'll just go to an employee record, and this could be for a vendor as well. All right, I'll pick on poor Kyle. So contracting and digital signatures. We have our own contract lifecycle management tool called Anapact that integrates natively with NetSuite. It allows you to store specific information, metadata information about the contract, as well as work through authoring it from the NetSuite application. Okay. So here's a listing of all the contracts. And this is a demo account, so there is just a ton of junk in here. So You have to excuse me on that. But it gives you the ability to search metadata dates, right? So we can define an unlimited number of metadata elements that we want to track about a given contract. So digital rights, escalation clauses, that can all be tracked within NetSuite, within Anapact. And then from within the NetSuite application, I can dynamically create that contract and it will flow over into Anapact. I can create contract templates for things like, non-disclosure agreements, probably the easiest. And I can create a mapping record that will map data from NetSuite into Anapact. So instead of having to key all this crap in, what it does is it will look at information that's listed on the form here for mapping it over. Okay. So we'll do our NDA record. There's our mapping. Contract owner, we'll make that whatever. I only have a couple listed here. And then we're going to send it to and this is set up on the contract template, right? For how this gets mapped out. Whoops. And if you don't want to use it for signature, you don't have to. That's the way this particular template is set up. Oh. It'll fill in the information and ultimately create that contract here in Anapact. And then once it's in Anapact, if there's additional elements that need to be tracked, the metadata is going to be defined by the template. But at any point, you can come in and update the metadata elements. And once it's completed, right, you can also assign workflow after the fact. Okay. I'm wondering if this unfortunately is pointed to a different environment, which may be why that's not getting created. But I will come back here and show, I can't remember. It'll also display the contracts within the NetSuite application here for any contracts that are listed inside of Anapact. You can view them. And again, this may be pointed at the wrong environment. So, and you can download them. So you have visibility. Emily, I'm not sure if that answers some of your questions, but hopefully that paints some capabilities around what NetSuite and Anapact can do.
No, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. And on the document retention, again, there's a balance with NetSuite for what you store here. You can also integrate it with Google Drive or SharePoint. I will say typically if you're storing very large documents, CAD drawings, media, I know that's a big point for you all. I would not recommend using NetSuite's document storage simply because it's probably not going to be worth the spend to use it there, as opposed to setting up an integration where you can get cheaper storage. So that's just the truth. As much as I'd like to sell you an unlimited package of NetSuite data storage, I just don't think it's worth it in the end when you can go get 2 terabytes from Google for like $10 a month or whatever it is. I know it's more for businesses, but still cheap. So. Okay.
Yeah, that was another one of the questions I had was, our files, audio files being large in capacity. Can we connect to like an Amazon S3 bucket and deliver through here connected to that, or?
Let me double, oh, I'm in wall, there we go. Let me check something real quick for you. Let's see. If not, I know how that can be accomplished. If there's not a pre-built integration, let me look at this. We have a partner that we work with that helps us. They have a couple of applications that do integrations and different things like that. And I know they have a couple, and they may not have, they don't have it listed. Yeah. They don't have it listed on their website, but they do have an integration like Google Drive and SharePoint. And I'm wondering what it would take to integrate that to S3, or it could be something that our team could deliver if they don't have any capabilities around that. Because again, there's a balance between one-time spend versus that ongoing recurring cost of storing that data. And it just, I don't know why NetSuite hasn't optimized this. I understand early in the days of why they didn't, but now with the way file storage is managed, it's table, it's so cheap. So okay. Let's see. Are there any other areas to cover? I'm happy to spend the time. But quite frankly, I've kind of run out of stuff to show, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think that.
And it means just kind of getting a general sense of your timing and how you're evaluating systems. Can you maybe share kind of what next steps look like internally?
Yeah, we have a couple of other demos scheduled. And then we're looking at probably making a decision before the end of the calendar year with a target of a go live on July 1st next year.
Okay.
And so
All
far,
right.
everyone's been okay with that.
Great. Well, we'll circle back, and if there are any questions, how-tos, or wouldn't it be nice if it could do this, just let us know, because
Yeah.
I think it's all with the extent it certainly can. Just need a little bit of a framework.
Yeah, that's fair. We'll do a review probably Monday morning with our team, and then if we come up with any questions over the weekend, then I'll send it over to Lourdes and Navina, and we can go at it that way. And if we need another demo, then we'll get that set up too.
Great.
Awesome. And I know this was a lot of information to digest right now, but I do want to ask how this demonstration met your expectations on the operations side, production, and finance. So opening the floor.
Yeah, from my view, Lourdes, I think it met what we were looking for.
Okay.
Particularly in finance. I think probably with everyone else too. I'll let them tell me I'm wrong, but
You're absolutely wrong, Ken. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, it's a lot of kind of trying to turn it from production side, wrap our brain around a different way of doing it, which I think Glenn, you mentioned, that's just kind of what we might have to do. So, we'll get together, put our heads together, and see if we can figure out how this would work into our workflow. But thank you.
And if there's one thing I've learned with projects is everybody has their own unique way of doing it. So it's not so much what you see as what you get, is building the framework for success around what you need to track and how you want to track it. So you know, there's a lot of flexibility in the system is what I'll say on that point. Because
you might have stepped in it there, Glenn, because I remember years ago being in front of a group of demonstrators for JD Edwards, and one of my partners said, "So how flexible is it?" And they said, "Well, it's really flexible." And then, you know, 6 months later, when we were trying to implement it, she was pulling her hair out because she couldn't figure out she couldn't figure out how to answer all the flexible questions.
JD Edwards is not an application I would call flexible. Yeah. That was a I won't say a lie, but an oversight.
Well, there were things you could do with it, but you had to set it up in the back room first, and so trying to make those decisions was not always easy.
Yeah, and then sticking by them, it can be very difficult. And those,
Yep.
and I worked with some larger applications like Dynamics before, and very much it's like you set it up and it does a ton of things and it's super powerful, but it goes one direction, right? And
Yep.
Salesforce and NetSuite are more agile in how they can pivot and do different things.
Cool. What do you think, Philly?
I think it's capable of doing anything we need. It's just, you know, a matter of the setup and the design and getting the flow correct. You know, it's like a blank slate that we design is kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, cool. So so yeah, I'll send notes probably mid to late week next week to Navina and Lourdes and give you kind of a lay of where we're at in the project and go from there.
Yeah, and Ken,
Cool.
does it make sense to sync on Thursday to go over the notes, just so we're clear on what the next steps are?
Sure. Thursday next week? Yeah, no. Thursday next week is. I don't even have to look. I know it's miserable. But we could Friday.
Friday?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking. We're actually going to be in Texas that day. But I believe we can do this before we have. Yep. Okay. So let's do this for 9 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. your time.
Cool.
Okay. I'll go ahead and I'll send this over and then I'll confirm times with you. But we really appreciate showing you the application. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely let us know if anything comes up as you all discuss internally, forgot to ask something or anything. I'll be happy to hop on a quick call and help answer it. So, but appreciate the opportunity as well and look forward to hopefully continuing to work with you guys, and think NetSuite could be a good fit for what you're trying to accomplish. So,
yeah, appreciate your time, Louis.
See you guys.
take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Glenn.
Good weekend.